Hello everyone, welcome along to another video where I wanted to just put out a little message to talk about FS 2024. Unless you've had your head buried in the sand, I would assume you know that 2024 was released, and well, I mean, it's not really blindness related in any way, but the release itself was a bit of a mess. They well, apparently did some tests based on the hypothesis that there'd be 200,000 people trying to access it on release day, and they ended up with around 2 million. So they then had to try and drastically scale up the servers, but many people had issues on the first few days even trying to load in. That seems to have been, well, somewhat resolved for people. And from a site perspective, people are having mixed opinions on the sim. But as with anything, I'm sure it will sort itself out given a few months when add-ons move across and servers stabilize. I'm sure people will get used to it. Right now, it's a bit of a transition process, and there are good and bad things about it. I'm not really here to talk about that sort of side of it. As I say many times on this channel, if you want cited perspective on, is the photogrammetry any good, or how do I use the UI from a sighted person's perspective, then this is not really the video for you. There's other videos, but from a VI perspective, I thought I would just give a bit of an overview. I don't do the weekly update videos anymore. I don't have the time to do those at the moment. And I think especially with TFM at the stage that it's at right now, there's not a lot of information that's being given publicly for good reason. You can communicate too much. And when things are under development, then there's no point putting out updates constantly and then finding a week later that actually things have changed and you've got to go back over everything again. There's a reason that companies keep things under wraps and then just when things are finalized let people know. So I'm not doing the weekly updates, but I thought I'd kind of just talk about it, and because I know there's been and I've seen a lot of sort of disappointment from the outside community who maybe aren't part of BVI pilots, who saw this game release and thought, oh, this is going to be some big accessibility thing and this is great. Not the case, unfortunately. It's still narrated. I know people on console have had some issues, but it's still narrated and everything like that, but there's really not much you're going to be able to do as a blind pilot in FS 2024. In fact, probably less. They removed the AI co-pilot, apparently. I mean, I was never a fan of the AI co-pilot. I've always said that. I do not believe that loading up an aircraft and pressing one button and then allowing the AI co-pilot to taxi and fly for you is really an enjoyable experience or a realistic experience. I think it's a bit of a cheat. But that's just coming from me, who wants to actually, fly following realistic procedures. Some people want to just chill and enjoy the soundscape, and maybe just use a GA aircraft, and that's fine. If that's what you want, then AI co-pilot was great. But it seems they've taken that out, and I know that there's been some push. Well, according to some people, apparently, blind community has no interest in advocating for increased access, but we'll get to that. There has been a push on the forums and through the ticketing systems by a couple of members to re-add the AI co-pilot, and not just from us as well. As Josh rightly pointed out in one of our groups the other day, you've got to remember the AI co-pilot is not the be-all and end-all for us. We have other ways to fly, other ways that are more realistic. But for other people, and we have to consider this, there are people with disabilities apart from BVI pilots. AI co-pilot might have been the way that they could fly, because maybe they're not able to use a keyboard. Maybe their dexterity is slightly impaired for whatever reason, and they can't use the keyboard and manipulate the FMC and all the different areas of the aircraft in that way. So for them, AI co-pilot was great and allowed them to experience the sim. So, real shame that Microsoft have taken that out, or Sobo, really, I suppose, they're the ones handling the sim. Look, I mean, we all know kind of Asobo's attitude has long been not the greatest. It's just been very not communicative, to be honest with you. It's not like they've had some attitude where they've ever publicly come out and said, we don't care about accessibility, but it's fairly obvious they have it pretty low down the priority list. I mean, the thing to remember is we have made progress. Remember, in Flight Sim 2020, when it launched, there was no narration at all. It was unplayable. So we've come away now where the narration's there. You can use the sim. You can load into an aircraft. You can go through your options, all that, blah, blah, blah. It's unfortunate that the default aircraft are not really usable by blind pilots and there's no native accessibility. But to be honest, I think anyone expecting that in Flight Sim 2024 was just naive. There's no way that was going to happen. There'd never been an announcement that was going to happen. There'd never been any indication that was going to happen. And even if there had been, I would still take it with a pinch of salt. I mean, these things always get conflated. You remember when in 2020 there was this announcement before the launch of the sim that, blind pilots had been testing the sim, blind veterans. And that sort of got taken out of proportion. And it sort of turned out that either that wasn't the case or these veterans were probably not blind at all and maybe had, quite a bit of significant usable vision. So I always try and take things with a pinch of salt. And there's a lot of, there is some frustration that it's not really moved forward, me included. I wouldn't have. We'd all love to have a situation where the simulator launches and you can just jump in and fly the default aircraft. GA aircraft, to be honest with you, I don't think are ever going to be in a great state for us because, of course, you're not really. They're not necessarily designed, certainly some of the smaller ones, to be flying in IFR conditions. You can fly them in IFR conditions, but generally they're really designed for, simmers to load up and fly around and enjoy the photogrammetry. So I'm not necessarily going to see that those are ever going to be the aircraft that BVI pilots are going to primarily use, but it would sure be nice to have the instrumentation and the cockpit panels and the tools in there read. Now, again, the important thing to remember, though, is we haven't lost anything, okay? We've not gone backwards. PMDG will launch for 2024. Much of it's going to be exactly the same. When FSUI PC releases, I expect that parts of TFM, that's even the old TFM, will still work and you'll be able to use it to read the instrumentation in whatever aircraft you're flying and that sort of thing. And we've already, said there's no official TFM support right now. How could there be? There's not really anything for TFM to support. But, once we move forward with releases in the future, of course, 2024 will be what we'll be looking at. PMDG have said that they're not releasing any of the products for 2020 after the freighter of the 777, which seems to have taken forever. PMDG are like, snail's pace. But yeah, so that'll release for 2020, and then after that, it'll be on to 2024 for PMDG. Yeah, fair enough. And of course, TFM will look at that. It's not like it's a totally different platform. It's a simulator that is. It's an update that probably could have just been pushed to 2020, to be honest with you, as an incremental update. Why did they make it a whole new sim? Well, obviously, they want their paycheck. They want their money. I mean, all simulators have done this. It's what P3D did. It's why they're now on version 6. It's what X-Plane did. I mean, they're on X-Plane 12. They always do this every sort of 4 or 5 years. There's a new release of the mainstream sim. And, you could look at it and say, well, is this actually that different to the old one? Well, I mean, in some respects, maybe, but it's essentially the same platform, just spruced up with some nice added features, and they're saying it's a whole new revolutionary sim. Yeah, well, okay. So, it's not like it's a totally different platform. It's not like we've just gone from P3D to MSFS where aircraft were going to take years and years and TFM was going to have to totally look at the new infrastructure. It's not like that at all. It shouldn't take too long for PMDG to move their aircraft over, hopefully a few months at the absolute maximum. And the same thing for TFM. We'll have to double check those kind of things. But you might even find it works out of the box with the PMDG offerings when they move them over. Who knows? But we haven't lost anything. But it's just unfortunate, I think, that unfortunate that the default aircraft aren't usable, especially given that airliners are getting better. The default airliners are, let's be clear, still not add-on quality. They're not a Phoenix. They're not a PMDG. But these aircraft are getting better. I&I builds have launched their A330, their A321neo. Of course, you get the 320neo, and I believe the A310. The 7.4 and the 7.8 default still not very good, really. But the I&I builds products are good. So it's a shame that we can't access those and have some free aircraft just by default in the airliner department. But it's also wrong to suggest that nobody's been pushing for this. You can look on the forums. There have been posts made over the years, many posts by blind pilots advocating for this. We even had an accessibility testing team maybe 2 or 3 years ago that was in the beginnings of being set up, got quite far with that. Unfortunately, our contact left, and then we were kind of back to square one. So this sort of holier than thou attitude that some people seem to want to take, well, you know, they're just not advocating, or even they'll take it further and say, oh, you know, if TFM just disappeared off from the scene, then accessibility might come natively from Asobo. It's only because TFM's there that Asobo go, oh, no, we don't need accessibility. I don't even know if Asobo know about TFM. So it's, you know, this sort of idea that, you know, we should just pull TFM and remove everyone's ability to fly and hope, sit here hoping and sort of just hand-wringing and complaining and whining to Asobo and just hope that they maybe do something for us, is just nonsense. If Asobo want to do something for us, then that's absolutely great, and we will be the first to jump at that and provide feedback. It doesn't mean TFM even in that case would go away. Why on earth can you not have multiple products? As I've always said, everybody wants to tell you what they would do and how they do it. Very few people want to actually go and do it, which is why something like TFM has been a mainstay of the community. TFM wouldn't be here if it wasn't not only the only thing doing what it can do, but doing it relatively well. So, you know, as I say, it really is quite difficult to pull these things off, and everybody wants to tell you how they would do it. It's like, okay, well, go and do it then. Go and do it. Go make your add-on. Go get Asobo to listen, whatever you want to do, and come back and inform us about your exploits and how we've got some new amazing thing to try out, and we will happily come and do it. But it's very easy to look in from the outside and, well, you know, TFM's blocking access, and this the BVI community is not advocating enough. Very, very easy to look in and say that when you've never tried the simulator, you've never been part of the community, you've never spoken to Asobo. I mean, I've had people even suggesting ludicrous things. If PMDG made all the default aircraft for the simulator, if we push for that, then it would all be usable, right, for blind pilots. And you get, what planet are you on? PMDG make all the default aircraft for Microsoft Flight Sim. PMDG is their own entity, their own company. They make several aircraft, and they make them very well because they've done it for over decades. They're developing these aircraft from real-world counterparts. They're not here to make, 200 default aircraft for Microsoft Flight Simulator, or however many default aircraft come with it, because it's not just the airliners. There's all these other various aircraft you can get from the marketplace and whatever. The aircraft they launch every few months or whatever, the various GA aircraft. So, it's just these nonsense ideas, I'm afraid. So is it a shame? Yes. Have we lost anything? Absolutely not. I do firmly believe that we will be moving in the right direction over the next few years when it comes to getting access to new aircraft. I know that's what everyone seems to think, that aircraft are the only thing that provides richness in a simulator. They're not. Is it unfortunate that we only have Boeing aircraft and sort of the 737, 747 and the 777? Yes, obviously we'd like more, but those aircraft are very rich in detail for starters. So if you're a real world pilot, you're not jumping around between 20 different aircraft. You are getting specialized on a particular model. You're learning the quirks of that aircraft. You're learning it in detail, all the procedures. Right? That takes months and months, years and years. So even as a simulator pilot, someone who wants to replicate realistic procedures, there's much to learn in these aircraft. It's not just sort of fly it for a few weeks. Oh yeah, I know how to fly this now. I could fly it in real life if I wanted to. Oh, it's amazing. Right, I'm a bit bored now. No. There's a lot of things that you can do with these aircraft, a lot of different procedures to learn. You can set them up by hand if you want. You could do failures if you want. There's so much richness, right? But even then, it doesn't just come from the aircraft. People seem to think, again, outside the community, have never tried the sim, that we are just somehow flying from vanilla airport A to vanilla airport B. I mean, you've got real world weather to contend with. You've got ATC. This is a huge one. You've got 24/7 ATC if you use AI ATC like say intentions. If you use VATSIM, even better. You've got local real world controllers who know their local airports and regions and who can follow the real world procedures. Do you think every airport you fly to has the same procedures? No, they have different SID star procedures, different holding procedures, different icing procedures, different approach procedures, different phraseology. Europe, US, Asia, all totally different phraseology. So there's plenty to do there. We have events, we have our virtual airline. Do you think running the virtual airline is easy? No, you have to keep track of the fleets, the finances. You have to keep in touch with all your pilots, solve issues, organize events. I mean, we try and do monthly events, where we all kind of get together and fly. Group flights on VATSIM, So there's so much richness that does not just come from the aircraft. I wouldn't be doing this if I was flying from random airport A to airport B and every airport was, the same and we were flying the same aircraft. The aircraft is one component of a much bigger simulator environment. And so, yes, we do want more aircraft, but it's not just the aircraft. That always seems to be a sticking point. There's limited aircraft available. I guess, well, do you want quality or quantity? Would you rather have, and I don't like to make the comparison, Eurofly, where you've got God knows how many aircraft, but they all use generic systems. There's different systems in the aircraft in terms of, okay, does this aircraft have an APU? Does it have 4 engines or 2 engines? Yes, of course, there's different systems like that, but they are all generic. It doesn't matter if you're flying an Airbus or a Boeing. It doesn't matter if you're flying a 737 or a 777. The autopilot and things like that will not behave in a different way. The quirks of the aircraft are not modeled, right? So do you want quality or quantity? And if you want quantity because you're a casual enthusiast and you kind of think, okay, I want to fly some different planes and just sort of be very chill about it, then yeah, this is probably not for you. That's fine. It's not for everyone, right? It's a niche within a niche, and it is quite, a geeky thing that we do, right? Not many people understand it. Not everyone will have a love of aviation to the extent that they want to delve in this deep. But for us, it's also about the quality. It's also about, the fact that I am learning real world procedures and doing things as a real pilot would, that I'm flying with other sighted pilots, thousands of them. We've even flown on things like Pilot Edge, which is a network that trains real world pilots in the US. It's used by training schools. That to me is amazing, right? And something like Eurofly or any other simulator cannot come close, right? But that's because I want to take it to a significant level because my interest is there. But it's not for everyone, right? And also, it is money, right? You have to pour some money into it. And I understand the blind community in general, let's say, is maybe not a rich community. It's not like everyone has got money to burn. There are various reasons for that, employment being one. We're not here to talk about, the difficulties blind people might face in finding employment, but of course they're there. So it is something that you have to pour money into, often a couple $100. I've probably poured thousands and thousands into it. That's because I've been doing it for years, right? So I've had FSX, P3D, different versions, Microsoft. So I've been buying add-ons and things for years and years, and also physical add-ons like honeycombs and whatever. You don't need to do that. You can pour in probably $100 and get a very good starting point, right? And then kind of go from there and spend over time. So yes, you have to put money in, but how many hobbies are there, or how many things are there, for example, in the real world where you can put in $100-200 and maybe then go get hundreds or thousands of hours of enjoyment out of that? I would say not many. So if this is really what you want to do, for me, it's worth it. If I look at the amount of money that I've put in and the amount of hours that I've gotten out of it, the amount of enjoyment, the amount of friends, the whatever, then it's worth it for me, right? So if you purely look at the price tag, then that may seem huge, or it might seem difficult to understand why. But if you have the interest and the amount of time to put in, then it will be worth it. And also, again, you might look at the price tag and go, I can't justify this because either A, I don't have the interest, I'm just not that interested in aviation. I'm sort of a little bit, curious, but I'm not really wanting to like learn all these procedures and spend hours. And okay, then fine, that's not for you then. Or B, you might decide that it's just too much money, and I would argue it's cheaper than it's ever been, right? But so in that situation, if you still can't afford to get into it, then yeah, okay, maybe it's also not for you, which sucks. But I'm not sure what you want me to do about that. I'm not gonna, I've even had some people on forums saying, "Can somebody buy me a license?" I mean, come on, grow up. So yeah, it's look. Flight sim is a bit of an expensive hobby, but there are many, many expensive hobbies, right? And there is the argument that I see continuously made as well, that we have to spend more than sighted people. And, yeah, that's indisputable in terms of the fact that on a base level, if we want to fly a realistic aircraft, we probably do have to spend a little bit more. Because, now with some of the default airliners, they can maybe fly an IndyBuild product or whatever. But realistically, if you are wanting to get into flight sim in any shape or form, and you're even taking it semi-seriously to the point where you're kind of going, yeah, okay, I'm not going to be doing this really frequently, but I'm going to do some flights here and there. As a sighted user, if you are looking at airliner simulation, you are probably going to buy the PMDG or a similar costing airliner because they're just better, and you are probably, or almost definitely going to buy some sceneries. Again, people don't understand, but if you listen to sighted people talk about the default sceneries, they're not good. They are blocky. They look like hotel apartment buildings or something, right? They're not very good. The taxiways aren't even accurate in some cases. So they have to go and buy add-on sceneries, which can range from, $5 to, I don't know, $30 for an airport, depending on the size of the airport and the developer. So if you have to go and do that and buy, 10 airports, you could end up spending, 100, 200, $300. Okay, great. You've now got yourself 10 really good airports you can fly to. We don't have to do that. So we, recoup some of that money that, yes, we have to put into maybe a PMDG product when they don't have to, if they don't want to. Maybe, yes, we have to spend a bit of money on First Officer, the co-pilot add-on, if we want to. Again, you don't have to, but if you want to make life easier, maybe you buy the First Officer add-on. And yes, maybe a sighted person wouldn't do that. I mean, they could do. Again, it's not a program for blind pilots, but the majority of them probably don't. They set the aircraft up themselves. Okay, so we use First Officer. Some people use it just to speed things up because, naturally using a screen reader can be a bit slower if you're trying to get around these huge panels. Okay, fair enough. So you're going to use First Officer just to support you as you learn the aircraft maybe, and you're going to use it to also increase immersion because there's two crew cockpit anyway in real life, right? So but some of that money we recoup because we do not have to buy the sceneries, we do not have to buy the visual add-ons. There's probably some texture add-ons they can buy. You know what I mean? There's other add-ons that they buy. FS Realistic is another one, adds all these shaking effects and stuff. We don't have to buy that. You can buy it if you want to add some sound to the turbulent sounds and things like that, but you don't need to buy FS Realistic. Sighted users, a lot of them really like it because it adds a lot of like windshield effects and shaking effects and touchdown effects and all this stuff. Visually, which again we don't care about. So to assume that 95% of realistic minded simmers, sighted simmers, do not buy more add-ons than us, they absolutely do. So the the point to an extent is negated, I would argue. I'm not saying that it's wrong. You are correct that a sighted person could theoretically get the simulator out of the box and fly around, and we could not do that. And yes, that kind of sucks. It's unfortunate, but it is not a reason to slag off the work that's been done, or to say it's worthless, or they're not putting in the effort. Nonsense. And the fact is, you can also you can really get costs down nowadays. Used to be you'd have to buy P3D whether you were sighted or blind. You'd have to buy P3D, you'd have to buy Active Sky if you wanted weather, you'd have to buy a time add-on if you wanted the time to be synced up. No longer the case. You can buy Microsoft Flight Simulator on Game Pass, if you wanna just try it out. You can buy a PMDG product, a 737-600, which is, yes, the least popular of the 73 offerings, but that's why it's cheaper, for $35, like a very complex aircraft for $35. You can get TFM currently for free. Obviously, there is going to be a subscription model, yes, but to the moment you can get it for free. That's all you need, really. That's all you need. If you've got like an Xbox controller or flight stick, then you can use that. That'll be great. If you want to get first officer, you can get first officer as well. But it's really not a lot. It's cheaper than it's ever been for blind and sighted sim pilots. You don't need a weather add-on. You don't need a time sinker add-on. There are other add-ons that you can get further down the line, sound packs or GSX or whatever. Wouldn't recommend GSX necessarily, but some people use it, and it is usable if you know what you're doing. You can get those if you like, but to just get started and learn the aircraft, jump on VATSIM. VATSIM's free. You can get ATC on VATSIM for free. You might decide to delve into other ATC add-ons as well further down the line that are paid, but VATSIM you can get for free. It's cheaper than it's ever been. So I don't have a lot of sympathy with people whining about how much it costs. It's like, if you can't put down $100 or whatever, it's even probably slightly less to get started in this hobby, then you're probably just not serious about it, and you probably need to just go and look at another simulator or game, whatever, like Eurofly. Eurofly is a great program. I'm not slagging Eurofly off. For what it is, it's great, and it brings enjoyment to a lot of people because of what it does. And for some people, Eurofly is the perfect level. They can enjoy aviation, they can exercise their love of aviation, they can fly various different types of aircraft, and they don't really care if the systems are not particularly accurate. They don't really care if there are certain things missing from it, or if the ATC phraseology is wrong, or they're not in any way following real airport procedures. They just want to enjoy aviation, fire it up for a few hours, and then forget about it and go do something else. They probably have a lot of gaming that they're interested in. For me and for others in this community, and it's not a big community, we should add that it's not a big community. It's not like we're some huge pressure group. I'm not quite sure what some people want us to do. Maybe they'd like us to march over to a Sobo headquarters and hold them hostage or something until they add accessibility. I don't even think we'd have the numbers to do that, to be honest with you. We're not a big community here. Because it is quite a complex hobby, and it's something that has to come from a particular interest that's kindled within you, and not everybody has that interest, right? It's because we like the realistic procedures that we do this, and so it's a level up, and it's not a level up that a lot of people want to go to, and that's fine. It's exactly the same in the sighted world as well, right? Not everybody in the sighted world who is interested in aviation plays on Microsoft Flight Simulator or X-Plane, right? Some of them use Infinite Flight on their iPad. Some of them use Flight Gear. There's loads of them, right? Loads of these other games / simulators that simulate flight in different ways, and are in many ways similar to Eurofly, or at least are filling the gap that's somewhere between game and realistic simulator, and so people have choice, and it's exactly the same in the blind community to a slightly smaller degree. You've got Eurofly, you've got things like 3D Velocity, and you've got things for military, I should add, and then of course if you want the sort of civil airliner realism aspect, you probably go to MSFS or P3D. The upshot of all this is we haven't lost anything, and I would actually be very optimistic. The opportunities that are available to us are, at this point in time, always going to be relatively limited because we are dependent on developers. People seem to assume that TFM is just dragging its heels. Part of the issue is there has to be a whole list of prerequisites. There has to be an SDK. There has to be, we need the panels, we need the FMCs. Often now in aircraft that are developed, we need the EFBs, because you have to use them to set up various parts of the aircraft before you can even get started with the aircraft. And then there are things that would be nice to have, like weather radars, terrain radars, whatever, that we don't always get access to. ICAS displays, right? So, but those are nice to have. So the basic level, you need the panels, really. You need the FMC and you need the EFB and things like that, okay? We don't always have that. Sometimes we have none of them. Sometimes we have some of them, where we could probably get one of them, but we kind of need all three to make it flyable, right? So this is where the issue comes in. And some development groups are just not interested. It gets tossed down the food chain, right? So and this is why aircraft like the fly-by-wire, being a free open source project where anyone can contribute, is more likely to happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's more likely to happen because you only need one person to contribute or to get in contact with us, or we get in contact with them, and they say, yeah, actually we can make the EFB accessible to you. And then from there, we're golden, right? The thing going forward into the future that fills me with hope is the progress of AI technology, right? AI image recognition, video recognition, it's getting faster and faster. It's getting more and more able to do things on PCs like click for you. This is potentially the future, right? This is sort of, I would say, where it's going to be at over the next 5 to 10 years, where there will potentially come a point where it doesn't really matter whether developers have given us access to all of these sort of key areas that we need in their aircraft, but we can get access. We can get access regardless through the AI tools available to us. We can fashion something for ourselves, right? And so that is where I think we're probably going to have the most joy. Hopefully we can get some companies to work with us, don't get me wrong. Fly-by-wire is maybe one of them where, as I said, because of the structure of the project, it's more hopeful. I know that there's always companies who say they're willing to work with you, right? And it doesn't always happen. And, take Beyond ATC as an example. There were blind individuals within the alpha. The developer said that he was going to look into this as a matter of priority. It didn't work out. He didn't bother doing it at all, despite the continuous pushing. What do people expect us to do if that is the case? Shall we go around there and hold the guy hostage? I don't understand. Luckily, Say Intentions came along, doing things even better in some cases than Beyond ATC, and that is now fully accessible. And the developer the development team was very responsive. They now even have Josh on their team as an access consultant. So, sometimes it's just the case that the development team are not particularly interested in access. For whatever the reason, it's just far down the list. They're being fucking idiots. Whatever, you can pick your reason, right? Sometimes it happens, and you can hand wring as much as you want and complain about it, but we need to sort of look at the people who are willing to open up to us. And yes, to an extent, we have to push. This is not me saying I'll just sit back and take whatever you can get. No, by all means push, but there is a limit to what we can do. And sometimes this is why innovation is key, right? TFM is one of the most innovative things. Flight sim natively is not particularly great for us, but something came out of it, TFM, and we said, you know what? We're not just going to sit back and take whatever's given to us. We're going to move forward with an open mind, keep pushing, keep trying, and, we have made progress. As I said, it had no narration when 2020 launched, no narration at all. It wasn't even playable. So keep pushing, keep, trying to work productively where we can, but let's innovate on our own as much as we can as well. Let's do things for ourselves. And that's where TFM has been so innovative, and many other add-ons as well, and developers who've helped us along the way. Small things that get forgotten, right? Say Intentions is one of them. I can, Easy CPDLC. Does anybody use that? I don't know. Easy CPDLC. I remember one time the guy making that accessible the night before Across the Pond for us. Countless other things along the way. Virtual airlines who have made exceptions for us to reposition. VATSIM who make exceptions. So many different things. So, I'm very hopeful. And I think technology is really going to support us as we go forward, to be honest with you. I think we're going to be able to continue to innovate more and more. And at that point, we keep pushing for aircraft developers to give us more access, absolutely. But we will get to a point where we have a lot more control regardless of what they do. And that's a really great point to be at, because there are always going to be aircraft developers who are not interested. There's so many aircraft out there. There will always be some who just do not respond to the emails and the support requests, and who, no matter how much of a fuss this small community makes, just don't really care. At the end of the day, what is it to them? It's 30, 40, 50 people not buying their aircraft. If they're a huge developer and they're selling loads of these, do they really care? Well, you would think some of them are ethical and some of them would be really curious and amazed that we can fly, and some of them will care, and that's what we've found. Some of them just, not bothered. And it either never gets to the right people, or they're just sort of like, yeah, whatever. It's too much effort for too little return. And, that's a business decision. They're a business, unfortunately. They're well within their rights to make that decision, to look at, it's the same with features. I'm sure there are many features in these aircraft that sighted users would like to see, and they submit support requests to make a fuss about. And the developer looks at them and goes, yeah, well, this feature request is too much effort from us for too little return, so we are not doing it. And that's, unfortunately, it's a business decision from their perspective. And the only thing you can do is keep lobbying for change, as we do. But that change doesn't always come, so sometimes we have to innovate as well. So it's a combination of both, right? And that's what TFM has been doing, and I'm sure will continue to do. And anyone else in the community who wants to contribute as well. I've always said, TFM at the moment has a monopoly, and TFM does a fantastic job. I'm on the TFM team. If someone else wants to come along and make their own program, they can do that. They can absolutely do that. And if it's better, then people will use it. I'm a big believer in markets, right? If something came along tomorrow that blew TFM out of the water, then people would go, you know what, I'm going to use this. I would go, you know what, I'm going to try this. Absolutely. I'm an aviation geek. I want access to things as much as everybody else does. But you know what? Nothing has, because as I said, it's very easy to talk. It's not so easy to do. So hats off to people who are actually doing things within the community, because it's those types of people who actually allow us to fly and access these things. I've been doing this quite a while, and you learn to be a bit cynical. People promise a lot, and often it doesn't get delivered. So hype is easy to build, right? But actually pulling something off is another matter. But maybe I'm just too cynical even now. So I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So that's my thoughts on the release. Give it a few months. PMDG will probably go across. The recent statement that was released, this is obviously public knowledge of TFM, that TFM is now in alpha. The next release version that will then go into beta is an alpha, and we're making very, very good progress. We are probably right on track, if maybe not a bit ahead of schedule. So it's coming along. It's going to be very nice for all of you, I think. It's going to really streamline and refine, and in some cases offer new things as well. It's going to be exciting. And then from there, hopefully we kick on. We consolidate. This is sort of what the past months have been, right? For TFM mainly is consolidation, because it was necessary to go through this transition, which is still sort of taking place as well, and to move across to new ways of working. So now the consolidation is yielding fruit, and then from there, as we move into from alpha to beta and then eventually release, we will get to a point where we can really start to use this as a platform to continue building on. So I'm excited. I would love to know, looking forward in sort of 3-4 years, where we'll be, what other add-ons we might have access to, what AI is doing for us, if anything. So yes, I think it's going to be exciting, and I don't think there's any reason to worry. And BVI pilots who have got their heads screwed on and are in the community will not be worrying. It's just people on the outside who, for whatever reason, got very hyped up at the release of FS2024, thinking there was going to be some kind of accessibility when, I'm not really sure where they got that idea from, other than just hope, which, never lose hope, absolutely, but it was never really on the cards. I was not excited. I haven't even purchased it. I haven't even installed it. Why would I? There's nothing really for me to do in there at the moment until PMDG move their aircraft across. I'm not really interested in just whizzing around in some shitty default plane with my flight controller and then crashing it into the ground or whatever. That's not really my idea of flight sim, but there you go. So we will wait and see, and I would hope by 2025 everything in FS2024 will be moving along nicely. So that was longer than I intended, but hopefully is useful. So. And I get comments on some of my videos as well. I should sort of put this on here saying, please do a Eurofly flight, or will you please, can you look at some mods or etc. I'm sorry, guys, I'm done with Eurofly. I'm very, very much done. I have been for years. You can look back, and I don't know when the last time I tried Eurofly on the channel was, right? It was probably 2-3 years ago, maybe more. I don't know. Eurofly is finished for me. As I said, I love what Eurofly has been able to do, and the passion that it's kindled in a lot of people, and I think it's very good for what it does. And obviously it's free, so I'm never going to bash it. But for me, it just does not in any way satisfy me anymore to do that. It is not a realistic replication of the sort of aircraft that I have in Microsoft. So I'm only going to do things if I actually enjoy them. I'm not going to stream it if I don't enjoy it, or make videos or do flights. It's just not what I do. So if I don't have a passion for it, or it doesn't satisfy me, then I'm not going to be doing it. So no, I'm sorry. Eurofly is just off the table. That will not be happening. So yeah, that if you enjoy it, then hats off to you. And if it's fulfilling your passion for aviation in the way that you want it to, then I'm very, very glad. And stick around, because this channel is not just about any one simulator or any one platform or any one add-on. It's about the love of aviation, and it's sort of tracked my love of aviation from the very beginning, using itch.plane when I was a kid to right now, where we have been doing realistic flights on Pilot Edge, VATSIM, same tensions with realistic aircraft in FS 2020, and that to me is quite a progression. But so it's not just about that, it's about the love of aviation, and how we do our streams. We talk about aviation, the different things that we like, and what's going on in the world of aviation as well. We're not just sat there talking about this sim or that sim. I just think that's silly. Use whatever you want to use. I couldn't care less, as long as you're fulfilling your love for aviation and it's making you happy, then that's fine. Right, I will see you in the next video.